Hello, this is fan of Juicy Media, and with a Honist Gubbynet message from the Australian Gubbynet um public health message. The Australian Gubbynet has had budget cuts as a consequence of doggies coming in and crapping on our carpet. We had to take our doggy to the vet, to the RSPCA to have the doggy tested for rabies. And we also had to have the carpets taken to the laundromat to be cleaned of the doggy poo. As a consequence, the Australian Gubbynet hasn't got a huge budget for public health advisory advertisements. So just apologies right here for that. The shit stains involved were doggy shit stains, and they said it was just a meme, so we've been attacked by memes, and the man at the moment we're being attacked by is, of course, Terrance from Canadia. So Terrance from Canadia would like to advise that he's running as an independent for the city of Braddon in Tasmania. Terrance from Canadia, having just arrived in Australia as a refugee as a consequence of being afraid of Trump annexing Canadia, is quite proud to take over not only Sesame Street, but also the fan of Juicy Media's Australian Gubbynet, Honest Gubbynet ads. And would like to run as an independent for the city of Braddon in Tasmania. The reason why Terrance from Canadia would like to do that is because some cunt has to do it, and just something like a cunt, like the map of Tassie. And we hear that Braddon has quite the vagina. The vagina in question was sort of what's the word? It wasn't Johnny Reinhardt's vagina, but it was definitely a bit of a cunt, and it was a fishy smelling cunt, according to the latest Salmonese Gubbynet advertisements by Juicy Media proper. And just honest to goodness, here the salmon in Canadia was treated like that, there'd be an absolute goddamn bloodshed. They'd be siding with native people. They'd be preventing the installation of giant water pipes through their territories, which affected salmon natural habitats. They would be supporting the native bears and moose and elks. They wouldn't have Japa in Alaska, and Alaska would belong to the Canadians, not the Americans. I could rest assured that Canadia is much more environmentally friendlier than Braddon in Tasmania. Anyway, on the subject of conservative dog whistling or poopy whistling or something like that, is it called dog whistling when if doggy craps on the government's carpet and you have to take the carpet to the laundromat? And as a consequence, the Department of Education, the Department of Roads and Transport, the Department of Energy, Department of Finance and Social Security, and Department of Veterans Affairs, among other things. But then a doggy might be. He might need a little bit more than a rabies shot at the RSPCA. He might need court-martialing shot. Anyway, they got taken to the RSPCA because apparently the Australian Gubbynet is financed by the Americans. We heard Parmigiani was just and Virginia Reinhardt was just some two thorns in Australian side. As it turns out, it isn't just Parmigiani doing some kind of poop whistling for is it the Russians? We don't actually know. But he definitely says he wants to be like Donald Trump, and in his own words. And that's shocking, because does he want to annex New Zealand? Oh, we're totally horrified by that. Canada is going through some terrifying times at the moment as a consequence of Trump. Why the heck would Australia want the same thing? As for New Zealand, those poor Kiwis. How are they going to fuck sheep in private if the Australian sheep fuckers are chasing them instead? Oh, what a horrible time it is. So the Department of Shit Fuckery, also known as Doji, apparently tried to have its tassels put in Australia, and they were busted by Juicy Media at the time. And apparently Anthony Albanese, of all people, apparently decided to side with the fishy business, and we're just a little bit concerned by that. So Braddon, just to start off with, isn't Braddon a man's name, and it should be anywhere near a cunt. Okay, the electorates that are named after men should be on male-shaped peninsulas and islands. Okay, so Stradbroke Island, which has a sort of cylindrical shape, could be given a male electorate name. perhaps we don't know. Well, you could figure it out. Richard, perhaps. Perhaps Stradbroke Island can be called Richard. The election of Richard. Yes, let's call Stradbroke Island the election of Richard. Yes, that makes sense. Well, anyway, an election of Brandon in Tasmania, is going to be changed to the election of Dina. Because apparently Jen Reinhardt wants to run the whole country with her South African friends. Yeah, we don't like South Africa. South Africa tried to stage a coup in the United States of America. Now it's trying in Australia. And the consequence is that the United States wants to annex Canadia, and the Canadians came to Australia and they want to run as independent single government because just in case, it's really about protecting the New Zealanders. But you can't really protect Australians from themselves. Unfortunately, they don't actually know what country they're in, do they? Because they spend too much time on the internet. Less internet, more Gubbynet. Have a nice day.